30 by Adele. It is 12 songs, 58 minutes long. Her first album since 25, which came out 6 years ago in 2015, which is crazy. I remember when that album was released. Doesn't feel like 6 years ago, but shit, time flies. We did hear Easy on Me as the lead single, which is the second song on here. We both were waiting to hear kind of the context of the whole album and release. And now I can kind of get a sense of what she wanted to do with the whole thing. First track, Strangers by Nature. It's that sound of like similar to Easy on Me, where it's a slower kind of opening track with good strings, a little bit of piano in the background and stuff. Kind of sets you up for that. Obviously, Easy on Me, second track, really good for the lead single. I think gets you a good idea of what the album is going to sound like, but there's a lot more kind of surprises throughout it. It's not just, old Adele per se. There's some more experimentation, some more branching out, some pop and stuff towards the middle and the end of the record, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, emphasis on record. We're going to be hitting this theme throughout a lot. This is an album. It is intended to be an album. Adele has made herself very clear that she wants this to be consumed as a full album and a project. And there are individual songs on here that knock it out of the park, that are incredible, that I think are just confirmation that Adele is one of the greatest artists of our time, like musically, pop-wise speaking, just like the way she cares to the craft. But we'll go into that very shortly. I have pretty much nothing but positive things to say about this album and the stances she's taking on this being an album.
Yes. Third song, My Little Love. I really like this track. It's a little bit longer, but I love how it builds and builds and builds. And then you even have like this towards the end, like a little spoken part and stuff of her when it's playing out the last like minute to 90 seconds of the track. Really like that. Then you get like a little bit more pumped up with Cry Your Heart Out, a little bit more upbeat, which is perfect for the way it plays out on the album. First three songs are slower, really diving into your feelings. Then Cry Your Heart Out's more of like kind of taking it on your shoulder in a way, because this is definitely like her divorce album. Like you can tell, like that's what it's about. There's lots of different motifs about love, being a relationship, problems, so on and so forth. But I like the way that everything is placed in here, because you're not left wanting more and you're not left it's like the perfect sweet spot for everything. And more on that in a bit, obviously, but the way she wants you to hear it, it makes sense. And that's something I really like with when you get albums or concept albums or anything where somebody purposely has everything written down in a specific way. And it's an art form to do that. So it's not easy to do.
It really is not easy to do. Cry Your Heart Out, I love how it still fits within the motif of the album. If it's a little bit muted and soft and lower key in that regard, but still very upbeat. The drums have that favorite thing I've been talking about, maybe just I've been missing very much of just jazz club night, where you have drums that are definitely there and upbeat, but they're not particularly loud or like banging. They're just like really keeping the pace. The piano, you really feel the passion and the energy, and the lyrics, of course, like Adele, it's nothing to say here. Adele's usually like coming in correct with all the lyrics and the meaning is, but the fact that you feel that passion through the instrumentation is something that we mentioned that comes out in certain records or certain songs even, that when all those things come together, like that's music. That's what some of the best music can be, when you're understanding all of those things working in motion, conveying that emotion.
Yes. Yep. 100%. Towards the middle, you have some good tracks too. You have Oh My God, Can I Get It? Again, more of like that kind of upbeat and different, like Can I Get It? It's like that nice acoustic pop song in a way, what Ed Sheeran.
It's really 90s.
Like. Yeah, like what Ed Sheeran would sound like if he didn't sell out and suck now. This is how a British singer-songwriter does it nowadays.
The hot takes never end on Audioface.
God, no, never. That's the whole point of damn podcast. And I want to points, damn it. I want to set a point. Fantastic track too. I Drink Wine, I think, is a really good middle track song where you have some other stuff right before it, and you have some decent stuff after it, but it's a really good, like almost a ballad stuff. Building and building. It's a little bit slower. It's a longer of a piece, but it's well done too.
Yeah, it really, I was impressed with how the middle of the album sort of just lands really nicely. And it's really difficult to accomplish. We review so many albums where once you get to the bottom middle, like if we divide albums into halves, the first half and the second half is usually the hardest to continue to achieve and execute properly, because to keep up the energy you get, to keep up the attention you've gotten, the good graces you've gotten from the listener in the first half of the album is very difficult to do. And to also maintain the sound of the album, to make sure that what you're trying to accomplish, like a lot is really writing on the end of that album. And so a lot of artists just sort of do throwaway tracks. A lot of artists just sort of give their best effort at it and will applaud that effort. But because they're trying to do so many things, they fall short. A lot of artists honestly just frankly aren't up to the challenge yet. Nevertheless, they're making the music. But here you get a set of tracks that go through really nicely. If anything, each individual track, especially the last three, Hold On, To Be Loved, or Love Is a Game, could almost stand on its own as the album ender. But it keeps going on in a way that, you know, it's on the longer side. The songs are on the longer side. The album is on the longer side for 2021. However, it doesn't drag on.
So good. Like Love Is a Game is one of my favorite album enders I've had in a long time for a record. I really, again, because you have that middle part with I Drink Wine. Then after that, you have All Night Parking, Woman Like Me. Those are a little bit like, I almost got worried at those points because I'm like, okay, I see we still have these three long songs left. I'm like, is it going to drag on? Like, I'm really enjoying this record. I hope it doesn't do that. And it doesn't at all. This Hold On is slow, but it builds and builds and builds. And at the last minute, it's absolutely gorgeous. To Be Loved kind of sits that in between those two, because I think Hold On and Love Is a Game are very powerful, and you can't have them back to back because you'd water it down. Having To Be Loved in between the two of them is great because it gets you that kind of a little bit of a release to be between them, and then Love Is a Game just lands it perfectly for it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful track. I think one of the best Adele songs in a while.
Yeah, and it's not to say Adele's been putting out bad songs.
No. But I'm just saying it's like she even upped it up a notch. Just because that last track, I've listened to it like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, this is fantastic. It's really good. And that's saying something for me because normally I don't like. I'll enjoy these tracks and whatnot, right? I'll enjoy it. I'll listen to them here or there, but I won't like, because especially with Audioface, because we don't have time to sit and listen to a lot. I wasn't thinking that I would put on one specific song of Adele's and be like, just listen to that shit on repeat. And I put that one on repeat because it's so.
Yeah. It's another thing is that it's interesting for an artist to be able to transport you into experiences that you're not necessarily relatable to. Like, yeah. I have not been in a marriage, and I've not been in a marriage, therefore I cannot be in a divorce. But like the heartbreak, the pain and sadness, knock on wood.
You can always relate to at least a little bits of human motifs because you can always put your own mind to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be exactly the same, but it could be anything, you know? It could just be jubilation. It can be heartbreak. It can be sadness. It can be loss. There's so many different emotions. That's the love with Love Is a Game. Like, you can make it happy. You can make it sad. Kind of do like old 60s shoe up.
Yeah.
Do 50s, 60s. You can kind of do what you want with the same thing too. So yeah, fantastic record. Really, really impressed with it. It fucking.
And we'll go back to one last thing on that being a record. So Adele insisted with Spotify, I'm not sure, at least at the time of recording this, with how it worked with other streaming services, but Spotify, I don't think this has been the case forever, but at least for the past couple years, for very recently, the default option, the like big green button you see when you're about to play an album, is a shuffle icon. So you'll like shuffle through the album. And you know, this is kind of like a small little user interface change, but in reality, these little user interface changes matter substantially in the grand scheme of how people interact with the app, because we and I mean Sean and myself and Adele and all the people making music with Adele and all of you people listening to this podcast are really, really big into music. And so we will notice these things, but the average person will just see the big green button that's inviting and they will just go to it. And so Adele insisted with this music release, essentially, that Spotify changed the default play button on albums so that if you press that button, it plays through the album front to back.
How it fucking should be. I am really glad that it's there because it's something that always annoyed me with Spotify's interface of you'd pop up an album, it would be shuffle and play. And I'm like, why don't you just click play? And then if you want to shuffle it, you could go to your song and click shuffle if you really wanted to do that. Because it's supposed to meant to be played out. Or that's how albums should be made. And most are done that way. Thank you, Adele. Nominated Work Award.
Yeah, thank you, Adele, for
definitely.
For using your power in the music industry as one of the biggest, most well-respected artists currently doing it right now, to get a platform which is, through its haphazard behavior, shaping user behavior through its musical streaming service. It's the interface through which people are interacting with music now. Thank you for using your power to do this good thing for the art. This isn't like even a political thing we shout out on Audioface very often. This is just like a Anderson .Paak tattooing that thing about posthumous records. Like, this is a good artist standing on their principles in a way that makes me wonder how many people are listening to Audioface and what kinds of people are listening to Audioface. What kind of rooms you're working in? What are your day jobs? Please email us and let us know. I want to have interviews with you because you seem to be getting in the right people's ears and we appreciate it.
Right. Exactly. Arbitrary scale this week because we always do arbitrary scales for album reviews because normal ranking systems are null and void in our opinions because they don't do anything but make things worse. So it doesn't matter. Our reviews, our review, but it's fun to talk about the worst stadium names in Stadiumdom because that's what we like to do for arbitrary scale. There's a lot of bad stadium names just for you guys to know. Jesus, there's a lot of bad stadium names.
Yeah, I think just for slight clarity for the listeners, worse is better.
Worse is better.
In this case?
Worse is better. And you could take that with however you want.
This is going to be the Save On Foods Memorial Center for me.
Jesus Christ, that's such a bad name. This is going to be the cheaper insurance direct stadium. Hey, I got tickets to the cheaper insurance direct stadium, boys. Let's go.
Also, our arbitrary scales are vaguely news-based, and we will never be calling it the Crypto.com arena. That's the Staples Center forever.
That is Staples Center for the rest of life.